I'm curious your opinion on sort of the marketing landscape in general, sort of the agency side for painting contractors in general. Definitely run into, a lot of companies and contractors that sort of cast a negative light reputation, whatever you might call it, on the agency side. And absolutely, there are great ones out there, such as yourself. But I'm just curious when you sort of survey the landscape, being intimately involved in the space. What is your opinion on where it's at right now and some of the things?
That's a great question, and I think this could be a podcast by itself too. Maybe we'll do another one sometime. I'll give you the shorter answer. So I've been in this space for 19 years, and I started in an infomercial agencies where I kind of cut my teeth. I was doing like video scripts and radio and TV production spots, but I was like it was on the marketing side. I was
Yeah.
doing CTAs for like infomercial products and stuff. So it was definitely marketing. After a couple years of that, and I did a bunch of freelance stuff at the time too. Like I'd fly around and do consulting and media things and stuff with different various companies. But then like my wife and I, my now wife and I were dating back then. We were like we want to settle down, have kids, all that stuff. So I needed to stop traveling. And so I kind of like, let's build an agency. This will be fun. And that went this career. So about 15, 16 years of being like full-time agency space, not working for anybody else, right? But almost 20 years in marketing and three-quarters of that so like owning my own business, right? And in that time, I've just seen a virtual shit show of different kinds of stories left, right, and center.
Yeah.
And I think that like kind of getting these Facebook groups, they kind of help keep some of the agencies in check. When it first started, like we were never this way. I was brought up with, strong military integrity values and stuff like that. And we always tried to do right. Does that mean we've succeeded every time? No. I have lapsed communications. I have misset expectations. I have missed deadlines. I've missed performances. We've all made errors. I
Yep.
have made errors. I'll continue to make errors. But the integrity for us has always been right since day one. And I think where most people, and especially after 2020, I saw a giant influx after 2020. Same reason, like you had some stuff and pulling some students out of this, that sitting at home playing video games because COVID had all these lockdowns and stuff. So one of the things that happened in 2020 was there was a slew of how to build a digital marketing agency courses that came out.
Mhm.
And all of a sudden overnight, I had 10 times the amount of competition. Now I'm not worried about the competition. Like from a competitor standpoint, that doesn't bother me at all. I've got such a long track record. I've got dozens of national awards. I've worked for over a couple dozen Fortune 500 companies. I've worked for a half a dozen national and international franchises. I've done some really, really big stuff that I'm able to take these giant skills and pull down to working with local or smaller franchise paint companies.
Yeah.
And that's helped. And my wife has been in that journey too. So it's like her and I skills. We co-run this thing, and there's like big boy skills that we're able to put into small company playbooks. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Kind of like you and your uncle working on these giant franchise companies. You could take some of these big systems and put them in these small companies and have amazing results. So that's one of our skills and one of our superpowers. And there's other companies that created like a niche thing, like Facebook ads agencies is a really big thing. And so we're an all-in-one agency. We do a lot of things. That's really hard because
Mhm.
I have to have where a Facebook ad agency just has Facebook ad people. I have to have Facebook ad people, web people, Google ad people, SEO people, content writing people, graphic design people. It takes a huge army to do this, right? And a lot more interoperability and collaboration and bigger bites of campaigns and whatnot, right? And so generally what I see is I see two camps right now. I see these very new companies that have an incredibly high moral value. And even if they mess up, they're trying to do the right thing and they're going to fail forward, not just, screw people over.
Right.
And like I'd put like, Lucas and that group at Forward Media Marketing. He's very, very new, but he's good and doing good things,
Mhm.
right? But there's other people, and I'm not calling out anyone individually, and I don't think that's
Right. Of course.
appropriate. But there are some people that are approaching this from I want to collect a paycheck, not I'm trying to help someone's livelihood or someone's
Yeah.
business grow. And I think when you approach that, when you don't have integrity first, and you don't remember that at the other end of that client is an actual person, there's a family over there, I think you lose a lot. And I think it opens we talked about this a minute ago where like the leader sets the tone, right? If you have a bad leader in a paint company, like all the other things in there are just going to be wrong. And so if you have someone that has misaligned morals and core values at a personal level, I don't care what they put on paper for their company values. If personally their values aren't right,
Mhm.
there's nothing that's going to be great about that. And the hard truth is that like there's more of them than there are the guys of integrity,
Right.
and so our number one core value is integrity. That's like literally, I will fire people if they demonstrate lack of integrity. I don't care if you mess up. If you tried to do right, we're okay, fix it. If you intentfully did wrong or you withheld for you like your self-preservation stuff, you're gone. Like there is no second chances, right?
Yeah.
So, but I don't see that in a lot of agencies, and I think that the second angle of that is from the consumer standpoint that when you're talking to, let's say, two different agencies, and it could be me and somebody else, it could be two other people, it doesn't really matter. We're all going to use essentially the same vocabulary. There's the same buzzwords. There's SEO and schema and impressions and cost of marketing and it's all the same words, right? And very often, and I think inappropriately, some agencies will focus on attacking the other agency instead of highlighting what they do great.
Yeah.
And I think that creates these negative connotations where it's like, I have people on a daily basis. I am at least get 20 of these a week where another agency, there's a few of them that are doing this repetitively, but they know who my clients are because it's relatively easy to see through social interactions.
Right.
They'll find my clients, and what they'll do is they'll look at a campaign, they'll find one thing that may be slightly wrong, right? And we're talking about hundreds and hundreds of KPIs. We talked about that before, right?
Right.
The KPIs are just a data point, right? They'll find a data point, say, hey, these guys are screwing you over because this data point's wrong. And that's not right because every one of our clients has 10% or better cost of marketing, which
Yeah.
is great, right? So that's a 10x ROI. That's like the kind of the goal, right? Is to be around there. Now, don't get me wrong, there's seasonal fluctuations where it might go up. Brand new clients are going to be higher than that, right? Things like that. But if you fast forward after all of our clients at a 6 month or greater timeline, that metric is true. And so it's like, but we'll have these people that will come in and maliciously like attack one data point or another. But then, and again, I don't care about that to me. Where it hurts is to the customer
Mhm.
because now all of a sudden this contractor who doesn't know anything about marketing thinks maybe this data point is the most important data point in the world now because someone just told them that.
Yeah.
And now it's like, well, yeah, that's actually not the most important data point. And so now other agencies that are actually trying to do right now have to reinform and re-educate. And it's a hard loop, right? And so you get these comparisons and everyone's using these same buzzwords. And the bottom of the end of the day, it's very difficult for a consumer to understand the difference between a good agency and a bad agency. It's very difficult. And what I would say is that anyone looking, first of all, understand that even the best agencies, the agencies in the top 1%, they are going to still have failures. I have failures.
Yeah.
I'll point them out to you openly if you want. I'll tell you who, they're going to happen, right? But you want to look for someone that's had far more successes than failures, right? And then how did those failures go? Why was it a failure? Why did a client leave? And how did that thing leave, right? Because a lot of times in the agency space, when clients try to leave an agency, they'll hold their assets hostage. They won't pass over the website. They won't pass
Right.
over the phone numbers or the ad accounts or whatever. And that creates a whole nother level of like IP and potentially asset liabilities and all sorts of other stuff. You want to make sure that you don't hire someone that does that
Mhm.
ever. And so we don't do that ever. It's the only right way to go. Everything should either be owned by the end client or be in an agreement in the actual contract, say that you'll pass it over. That way that your assets are protected. I dozens of times a year, I see people that can't get access to their own Facebook page because an agency won't let them, or an ad account, or a website, or a domain, or an email, or whatever. And it's a sad story. So you've got to protect that and make sure the agency won't do that. So even if things don't go the way that you thought they would, you have an out, you can restart, you know what I mean? And it's okay. And then reviews are going to matter a lot. What do those reviews and case studies look like? What are your past results? And I think also timelines. because there's a few agencies, and I commend them for where they're at, and everyone starts at day one at some point. But if you're $3 million paint company, should you hire the company that started 6 months ago? Maybe not, right? They probably don't know what they don't know yet.
Yeah.
And sometimes what'll happen is you'll have some company that has like really great initial success, but they've never been through a down market. I've been through several,
Uh-huh.
right? While being an agency owner, I've been through several. What do you do differently as an agency owner to help keep the doors open on a contracting company when 2008 repeats itself? What do you do? That's a different playbook. You know what I mean? That is way different than right now. And so if you just got started 6 months ago, there's no possible way you could know it. You know what I mean? And so I think that like doesn't mean that you can't hire them or work with them, just understand the risk along with that. You know what I mean? And yeah, I mean I think it's super nuanced, man. I think that the agency space needs more integrity, more open, honest, transparent numbers talking. A lot of agents will inflate their numbers and pad things and overpromise and underdeliver.
Yeah.
Like when I sit down with a person, I'll give you an example, a specific example. I have probably 10 or more people reach out to me on a weekly basis asking to start Google Ads. Now, we have some internal policies and practices, and we know when Google Ads is a good fit and when it's not. One of those things is the revenue of the client and whether how many other channels they have going, because Google Ads is incredibly expensive and it's super risky and it takes longer than most people think to dial in. Most people think I spend $1,000 on Google Ads and I just instantly get leads. It's not quite that simple.
Uh-huh.
You typically have to have really great reviews already because people will leave that and go back and look at your reviews. You have to have a really good website already. Doesn't mean they have to be ranking number one on SEO, but those things should be present. And just the cost per lead on Google Ads, my national average last year was right around 100, like a couple bucks less. It was in the
Yeah.
90s, but right around 100, right? But LSA average is right around 50. Facebook leads are out between 40 and 50. So, like, should it be the first thing you do as an advertising channel? No, no, God, no. And it doesn't mean it's a bad choice, but there's a time and an order of operation, right? So, like, if you were to go into a doctor's office, like, hey, I want to do this, I want to lose weight, or I want to get healthy, or check my heart, or whatever it is, there's going to be some things that are like, here's the things that need to happen, but also here's the order of those operations. And so I have to come in a lot of times and say, no, that's not right. But you know how many agencies will take a $2,000 a month retainer from a company making $10,000 a month for doing Google Ads? It's scary, you
Yeah.
know? And that's sad, you know? And I also see, another thing I see huge is where, like, paid ad agencies, their fee will be higher than the ad spend that they're managing. So let's just say I have my fee is lower than this, but I'm just gonna give you even examples. Let's just say my agency's lowest fee is $2,000 a month, but the client only has, like, $2,500 a month. So I'm gonna charge them $2,000 a month and manage $500 in ad spend. I see it all the time.
Yeah.
And it's like, dude, no, if you only have 2,500 a month, either find an agency that'll charge you like 500, 750, $1,000, then take the rest in ad spend. So the ad spend is bigger than the agency fee,
Right.
or DIY it for now until you can afford that agency, because that relationship is not going to be great, no matter how you slice it. You're just way overspending on the labor. But I see that kind of thing. So, like, stealing assets, lack of integrity, overpromising, underdelivering, really backwards relationship of agency fee to spend fee. And it happens all the time, every day, for more people than it doesn't. Whereas the good agencies are super honest and transparent, both about the possible rewards, but also all of the risks. Because I don't care who you hire, what you do, there's always risk that I launch an ad and it doesn't work.
Yeah.
Even if you follow someone's proven playbook, there's still a chance that it doesn't work. And so you need to know those upsides and you need to know those downsides. You need someone that will tell you the appropriate timelines because they vary, and you need to know what that is. And then you need someone that's truly on your side that will actually listen to both positive and negative feedback, take it in, adapt and move forward, and has really a good integrity along the way. And I think that the reason I believe that we're in the 1% is because we fit all those boxes,
Uh-huh.
right? It doesn't mean that we haven't had failures, and I will again, but if given an opportunity, every failure we would fix. You know what I mean? Sometimes if people don't want to let you, and that's okay too. But like high integrity means you're always going to do the right thing,
Right.
and yeah, even when no
I
one's
mean,
watching.
when you almost compare it, like you sort of have the painting space, 1.1 average employee, it's $150,000 in revenue.
Most agency owners are single people.
Right.
If it,
I mean,
that's
very similar in that sense, and there's
Mhm.
certainly a lot of unprofessional painting contractors, who have unprofessional work, and I mean, a lot of that would translate.
I actually think it's closer than people think. And actually, one of the analogies that I will use sometimes when people say, "Well, hey, how do I know you're for real?" I heard the same buzzwords from you that I've heard from the last 3 agencies that I've talked to, and I'll say this: what happens when you're a painter in front of a homeowner that's been screwed over by a previous painter?
And the
What do you
great
say? The reality is that both professions are service-based, which means you're taking your time to do a service for somebody else, right? Uh, Cooking, massaging, painting houses, agency, financial services, they're all time to have a hopeful desired outcome. And some of those people know what they're doing, and some of those people really don't and shouldn't be there. And the reality is that bad painter that went with the homeowner probably said the same reason. We'll show up on time, we'll be professional, blah,
yeah.
blah, 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 blah. But then they don't, you know?
Yeah, it's the follow
And
through.
it's follow through, right? But the online reviews will show it. You know what I mean? Like
Okay.
20 years ago, 25 years ago, Google wasn't even a thing. It was in its infancy. Google reviews weren't a thing yet. Google was brand new. YouTube didn't even exist yet, at that time. And so you back into that era, like the era that I grew up painting, it was really, really hard to tell the difference.
Mhm.
Now you can tell the difference because if I'm a really great paint company, I'm going to have probably a 4.7 to 5.0 star rating. I had a client that I was working with in the Florida market. I won't say more than that because I don't want to allude to who it was. But there was a client that I had in Florida,
Mm.
and I was trying to do all these marketing things. Ultimately, we ended up parting ways. I was not able to service this client right. But one of the biggest reasons why is every month they were getting 1 to 2 one-star reviews for very, very negative things. Like they promised they would do this and they didn't, and we called them out on it, they wouldn't come back, they wouldn't fix it, or they broke this door and they wouldn't fix it. Big, big items, not missing a touch-up. Big nefarious issues of honesty and integrity. And marketing can't fix that.
No.
Now, what happens with the next paint company that goes to one of those clients? They're just not going to believe them. But we live in a world now where that company paid the price of reviews. You know what I mean? Those
Yeah, it
reviews are there.
democratizes the.
It democratizes it, right? You can only hide so much, right? And I have some failures. Some of them have said something about it. Some of them haven't. But the way that we handle those things when they're there, because we are all going to mess up, I think is a really big indicator for both paint companies and agencies,
Yeah.
right? If you do genuinely mess up, the way you handle it after is probably more important than the mess up that you made. Because everyone's going to miss a thing. Everyone's going to have a schedule. Everyone's going to break something. Everyone's going to spill a paint sometimes. Everyone's going to do something that doesn't align with expectations. Everyone. It's how we handle it, I think, that makes us better. And I think that if we can all, regardless of it being agency or painter or holding company or whatever, I think if just as humans, as business owners, if we can learn that one thing, we'll just be better because we're not going to stop trying to be better.
Right. I mean, you're gonna have, well, whenever you're in a relation with somebody, you're gonna have your highs, you're gonna have your lows, and it's probably best to not pretend as if those mistakes and failures and lows won't exist, but to, set expectations that there are going to be times where, even with us on the holding company level, there are times where I'm frustrated that things aren't progressing as I would like them to progress. And there are absolutely times on the ground where they are frustrated that we're doing certain things. And I think the best bet is just to set that expectation early so as the first time you butt heads like that, it's not, the blowing up of the relationship, but rather, how can we work through this together to make sure that we are
I
aligned moving forward?
I agree. And I would say as an agency owner, I actually created an article and a video about this because I've serviced a few thousand clients in my career, right? I have over 100 at the moment, which means that 90% of the clients I've worked with are no longer my current clients.
Yeah.
And there's a variety of reasons. Sometimes I go out of business, sometimes they sell, sometimes I move to another agency, sometimes I retire, sometimes you suck and they go with somebody else, right? There's the whole gamut of reasons, right? And but I wrote an article because I really think it's fascinating. One of the biggest things that I think creates that breakup of agency to client is actually not performance. And it's actually not any of those other things. I think what you just alluded to is how do we solve those problems, right? Um, if you are a company, like we talked about this earlier, it's easier to retain a client than to buy a new one. It's
Yeah.
easier to retrain and retain an employee than to fire a new one. It's actually easier to retain your agency than to switch agencies. And
True.
so this is something that we do that is extremely uncommon, right? I had someone come to me that was with Base Coat Marketing, right? And Austin at Base Coat Marketing, I think, is a very, very stand up dude. And he came to me and said, "Hey, I'm thinking about switching agencies because I'm not seeing the performance." Now, I'm not seeing the performance or the performance isn't there are two different things,
Yeah.
right? So the first thing I said is, okay, well, can we open up the books a little bit and can you share what you see, what's going on? And it turns out we dug in about 30 minutes. We were able to figure out that actually his numbers looked really great. He was getting about 7% cost of marketing, and which is fantastic. And I was like, yeah, dude, I really don't think you should switch at all. I think what you should do is you should call the company, talk to your customer service rep and say, "Hey, this is what I'm not seeing. And I think now that I'm looking at X instead of Y, I think this is actually really healthy, but I wasn't seeing this before. Can we work through this so I have more transparency on these numbers?" And he did, and they're still with him today.
Yeah.
Right? That is it is easier to work through nearly all of those problems. Now, don't get me wrong, if your agency is being disingenuous or if they are absolutely inept, for sure move to somebody that's not. But I'm talking about within the professionalized companies, if there's something that's amiss, and it's almost always communication, almost always. I mean, I had an instance where we were editing some videos for a Facebook ad for somebody a couple weeks ago, and the client had a very limited explanation of what they wanted. It wasn't detailed, right? And so basically like one sentence description of what this video should be like. So we inferred and filled in some blanks on that and we sent it to them and they did not like it, which forced a loop to describe what they actually did want. Once they were frustrated about that loop, really frustrated.
Yeah.
But once we had the loop and we said, "Oh, you don't like this, you want this, you don't like this, you want this," we went back, gave it to my video editor. She edited a new version. They were like, "Yeah, it's perfect." Amazing what happens when we have communication. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? And so I would say that throughout my career, over 90% of the cases where clients leave an agency are really not due to performance, they're due to communication about performance. Because if I have an employee on my team that doesn't do something, I will retrain with them, I will work with them. If you have an agency, they don't work for you in the traditional sense, more of a 1099 subcontractor, but they are servicing your business and should act on behalf, almost like a fiduciary of your business.
Mhm.
And as long as they're an integral company, they will do that. But sometimes there's feedback loops that you need to have. And maybe you just need to have 2 meetings a month instead of one. Maybe you need to have some of those hard conversations that you've been putting off, you know? And I think if we do, and we have really great conversations, including about the hard stuff, you'll switch agencies less and you'll have a better partner. And I think ultimately your cost of marketing will go down, your profits will go up. Hey, if you found this video helpful, please like and subscribe. If you're looking for help growing your contracting business, I invite you to join my free community. In there, we go live with amazing trainings, share resources and downloads, plus you get free help from me and from peers. That link is down below to join, and we'll see you in the next video.